One thing that I was thinking of is today was a Hall of Fame induction, and Fred McGriff went in, the Crime Dog, and Scott Rowland was another guy who went in. And when I think of Scott Rowland, I don't necessarily think of like Hall of Famer right off the bat. Good player for sure. I mean, he won a World Series with the Cardinals, I believe. '06. I remember that. He's got he's got some numbers. A lot of it was his defense too. He has a 70 WAR for his career, a bunch of Gold Gloves, Rookie of the Year. But what brings me to bring this up on the Virginia Game Day podcast is that when you think about Ryan Zimmerman, right? Is Ryan Zimmerman a Hall of Famer? Like that, I talked to my dad about it one time, and he said no. And strictly numbers wise, all right. He's got, compared to Scott Rowland's got a 70 WAR, like I said. Zimmerman's got a 40 WAR. But you can make some arguments. And one argument that I would say is that Zimmerman played with one team his whole career. And not only did he play with the Nationals for his whole career, but he basically started the run in DC. He was there the first year that the team was in DC. He saw the move from RFK to Nats Park. He saw, Nats Park go from being in the hood to being this like place where people go and enjoy it and win a World Series and be a playoff team and all these things. So there's something to be said about Zimmerman, and he's Mr. National, right? There's something to be said about that, and he won't be on the ballot for a few more years, but it's an interesting conversation, and I wonder what folks think. Zimmerman, let's look at his numbers. 1,799 games, basically 1,800 games, 1,800 hits, career 277 hitter, 816 OPS, 284 home runs. Good numbers. OPS plus of 116. If you compare it to Scott Rowland, batting average basically the same. Rowland, I'll put these numbers up on the board. Rowland 281, Zimmerman 277. OPS, Scott Rowland 855, Zimmerman 816. They both have a World Series ring. They both received MVP votes 4 times. Zimmerman didn't win the Rookie of the Year, but he probably could have. He had a really good year, but Hanley Ramirez had an amazing year in 2006 and won the Rookie of the Year. But Zim only has 2 All-Star games. That's something that probably hurt. Rowland's got a bunch more Gold Gloves. But Zim he's got like a little bit of everything. He's got the World Series. He's got a couple All-Star games. He's got 1 Gold Glove, 2 Silver Sluggers. It's hard to believe that he only got those 2 All-Star games. And his All-Star games were 8 years apart, which is interesting. He made in 2009 and he made in 2017. But I don't know if he'll get the nod. Like Zimmerman also reminds me a little bit like David Wright. David Wright didn't have the longevity either. He was playing with all sorts of pain and at the end of his career, and his career WAR is 10 wins above Zimmerman's, but Zim got the World Series that David Wright didn't get. David Wright made the World Series in 2015, but the Mets weren't able to win. I always would think of David Wright, Ryan Zimmerman, and there's another third baseman I would think about in the same. Not Evan Longoria. So I always think of Wright, Zimmerman, and Longoria kind of in the same categories. They were like coming up at the same time. White dudes playing their whole career in one place, although Longoria ended up leaving the Rays and is still playing. Actually, he's still with the D-backs and teammates with a couple of Wahoos now, Jake McCarthy and Pavin Smith. But I always thought of them in the same category growing up, and back in those early 2010s, late 2000s. Anyway, interesting conversation to have, and I love the Hall of Fame conversation is fun. That Hall of Fame debate. If you want to get crazy, go to Baseball Reference and you can do the head-to-head comparisons, and that's always fun. Speaking of Baseball Reference, you guys tried the Immaculate Grid for football and baseball. Look it up. It's fun. It's like Wordle for sports nuts. Awesome.